So I got to know what's going on in the financial markets. But, at this conference that we're all at here in Miami, crypto, Bitcoin 2022, for the first time on the first day, I looked out in the audience. It was all the giant institutional investors. They've never come to this conference, never. And I started asking, guys, what are you doing here? And they're saying, we sense the world's changing. We see the policy coming. We see these senators showing up here. We know they're going to make this thing investable. It's going to be huge. And so I'm investing privately in these things. I'm an investor in FTX. I have to disclose I'm a paid spokesperson for FTX as well, along with Tom Brady. That's a good crew to be with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so it's fun. And I believe in what they're doing. And so to me, this is the 12th sector of the S&P. We just don't know it yet. And in 10 years, we're going to wake up and say, wow, we have 11 sectors. Now we have 12. It's such a big part of the economy.
Do you think it would replace the S&P?
No, I don't think. I think really what's going on here is it's just making the economy more efficient. And now the government's figured that out. When you can be more transparent, faster, cheaper, I mean, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And that's really what's going on. You talk about crypto, it's really making financial services and investing easier and more transparent. So, there's nothing wrong with owning some Bitcoin. I think it's like owning a building. It goes up in value.
If we had institutional capital coming in under the market, if they had allocated 50 basis points or 100 basis points to, let's say, Ethereum or Bitcoin, Solana, Polygon, whatever, you would have had a bid. Instead, because we're basically under-owned by institutions, we have tremendous volatility. And we've seen this before. This is not new. It'll, recover eventually, but this is the nature of crypto unregulated. And so my argument is this really should get us focused on policy. Right after the midterms, I'm hoping for policy on stable coins and then into other assets as well, NFTs, that kind of thing. We're at the nascent stage, but the volatility is because we don't have the institutional bid. And so there's always tremendous volatility in new and nascent technologies and new markets. And crypto is a new market. I still predict in 10 or 12 years, it'll be the 12th sector of the S&P. There's just too much productivity opportunity here around payment systems and all kinds of other attributes of these blockchain projects that we just don't yet know what the upside is going to be. And I'd argue this, if you go to any graduating class, particularly now, it's very timely to say this, ask any engineering cohort, you're going to find a third of the engineers go onto the chain. They want to work there. They don't want to work in the other 11 sectors of the economy. They want the opportunity to create something new. And that's why you've got so much intellectual capital going into this space. You know with certainty down the road that the next genius ideas are going to come from this. Any college, any university, any engineer, they all want to work on the chain. Now, when you have a very volatile asset and you have the fortitude, I'm going to use that word, to use leverage to enhance your returns, you also run the downside risk of what happens when there's a major correction, as is occurring right now. You can get caught offside pretty quickly. And so Celsius, that's a good example of that. And I don't want this to sound trite, but let me explain how bottoms are made in any market. I don't care if you're in equities or in debt or in crypto or in real estate. You always need a big player to go to zero. That always helps, whether it's long-term capital or whether it's one of these crypto infrastructure companies. I would like to see, and I don't want this to happen, but it always gives you a good bottom when you get a large player over-levered that goes to zero. And that always tends to be the beginning of the rebuilding process. So if you have to sacrifice someone who used too much leverage, and it's always leverage that does this, somebody's over-levered, positions are complicated, they're not transparent, they're not liquid, and they go to zero. Someone is out there on the brink of zero. That's okay. In fact, I'd argue that's a good thing when we get it. Now, do we get it this week? Do we get it next week? Someone's going to zero. I don't know who, but it'll be great for everybody else that survives because everybody will learn from that. And that's what I like about a washout, an event. And I think we're due for one in crypto land. There are certain assets where I might put leverage on, but it won't be in crypto. I mean, when you see volatility of 50% on an 11-month basis, which we're seeing in Bitcoin, 60%, 20% days on Ethereum, you can't afford to put leverage on that. But, people will learn their lessons. This is a good thing in the sense that this generation of crypto investors has not gone through corrections like this and not gone through them with leverage. Now they're going to learn an important lesson. Everybody I know that has survived volatility has had a very important lesson or a date with leverage. And they didn't have a great dance that night, I must tell you. The one thing I would tell everybody is you can't pick the bottom. It's impossible. You have no idea when it's going to happen. But if you're staying long the category, you need diversification. I have so many different positions on right now, and they're all over the map. Now, come year end, what will happen, because this is a year where we're going to be looking at tax returns on all crypto trading and income, there'll be a lot of maneuvering on the projects that did not recover to take them as tax losses versus the ones that did. And that's going to be the nimbleness of trading. And that's why it's important to look at your positions and make sure you have liquidity in them, because most of these projects are very, very liquid, so it's not a problem. And we actually haven't seen, we had the Binance story yesterday. They looked for a couple of hours of room. Even all of crypto under 2 trillion is still nothing in financial services. So there's so much upside to this sector. When we do get policy, when we get institutional investors and sovereign wealth involved, then you'll start to see real assets. But, if Bitcoin went down another 20%, it wouldn't really matter because it's spread around everywhere. And most of the holdings are not institutional. For all the excitement about Bitcoin, no institutions own it yet. And that's the decision you have to make at a time like this when you're an investor. I mean, this is an opportunity to say to myself or anybody, look, if I believe in 3 years, 36 months that there'll be policy on Bitcoin, do I want to own it after policy comes and all the institutions start buying it? Or do I want to take a chance and live with some volatility now and buy it here at 24 or 23 or 20,000, whatever it's going to go to? I don't know. But if you believe in Bitcoin, it's a buying opportunity, but you can't guarantee that you're catching the bottom. Nobody catches the bottom. It never works that way. Here's what I think is going to happen. They're going to pick one thing. They're going to pick one thing and put policy on that. It's going to be stablecoin to start. And the policy there is going to be pretty clear. All the bills say the same thing. They want total transparency. They want an audit every 30 days. They want no duration more than 12 months on any asset holding up the coin. So that means T-bills on average are going to be 7-8 month duration and US dollars backing it. And that's the same kind of rule you're going to find in a Schwab money market or a Fidelity money market or any money market fund, with the benefit of all of these systems, once you put policy in place, having the ability to be a payment system. So I would love to see this happen. And the reason I think you'll get policymakers on both sides of the aisles backing this one thing after the midterm elections is this guarantees making the US dollar the currency of default in perpetuity. Once you back the US dollar on a stable coin, everybody's going to want to use it. I'm not going to use the Chinese one. I'm not going to use the Swiss franc. I'd be worried about liquidity. I'm not going to use the euro. The euro's all over the map. I'm certainly want nothing to do with Russia, and I'm not going to use the British pound. I want the US dollar to be a payment system that everybody else will accept around the world, like they do for commodities like oil. It's priced on the US dollar. So if we get stable coin policy, you talk to any policymaker about this, they get the joke in 2 seconds. And right now in USDC, the one that's holding the buck, rock solid, 54 billion in assets, right through the week, right through the correction. No problem with liquidity. I wrote more contracts this week on it. So look, there's a lot of people interested in making this work. I think we'll get policy there first. So I'm an investor. I'm constantly trying to find a way, the path of least resistance, to invest my capital, redeploy it. I have to look around the world for opportunities. I have to be diverse. And, crypto to me, when it was being frowned upon by regulators in a very harsh way, if you recall, 2017 was probably the height of when regulators were clamping down on tokens and different ways to tokenize assets like hotels and everything else back then. And as a result, I'm so involved in the traditional financial services market where I'm highly regulated and I have to report almost monthly to both my internal auditors, compliance department, and external regulators all around the world, that's the world I'm used to. And I saw no relief coming from regulators. And then what turned me around, what changed me completely, was when the Canadians, the OSC, granted the very first crypto exchange license attached to a dealer broker. A compliant platform. It wasn't rogue anymore. They told Canadian citizens you can transfer your cash out of your bank into this centralized wallet and you can trade Ethereum, Bitcoin, and slowly more and more coins were added. Then they announced in Canada the very first Bitcoin ETF. Then they announced the very first ETF that was for Ethereum. They were moving forward with policy that was regulated. And I immediately started investing in that because I saw it coming. I saw the writing on the wall. And I've also made the assumption, this is a personal assumption, that the OSC, the regulator that granted that world order for the first time, a dealer broker, was well in touch with the SEC and other regulators around the world. They talk to each other every day. Maybe Canada was being used as a petri dish or an experiment to try it. And it's been wildly successful. That's when I got involved in WonderFi. I became a shareholder there. WonderFi bought BitBuy, which was the first regulated exchange. And now that company has 800,000 registered compliant crypto accounts. It's the model for the rest of the world. So I got on a plane. I went to United Arab Emirates, Switzerland, England, South America, and I started showing these different regulators, look what the Canadians are doing. Can we do the same thing here? And that's exactly how I'm spending my time now, trying to open up these new markets with the policies that have been put in place, tested, and proven to work in Canada. So, you know, what I'm suggesting, and I'm just one voice, but I try and say this over and over again to policymakers, is let's pick one thing. I mean, the crypto universe is so broad, it's so huge, there's so many different things going on at the same time. Let's bring policy on one thing and get that done. And what I'd like that to be is stable coins, because as a payment system right now, it would be very, very productive to bring forward some policy on stable coins and let the market compete. Now, I personally prefer ones that are backed by hard assets like the US dollar, but there's many ideas out there. Some work, some don't. Obviously, what happened with Luna was a bad outcome, but that's okay. This is a nascent industry, and we're trying different ideas, but the need for an international payment system is so huge and it's such a huge opportunity to save costs, to provide transparency, auditability, liquidity, speed, all of those things. That's what I'm suggesting. Let's pick one thing and bring policy on stable coins. Let's nail that. And then we'll move into Bitcoin. We'll move into blockchain. We'll move into other things, but NFTs, but let's nail one thing.